Welcome to the Predictive PlayBook and Sports Memo TV. I am John Ryan, your host, and I am pleased to have a special edition of this show with my good friend and pal from Wager Talk, Steve Merrill. We're going to talk a little NBA here in a quick hitting fashion. And it's kind of like prep work for that NBA show that comes on at wagertalk.com. And I highly, highly recommend you go and participate in it. Even if you don't like the NBA and you like to laugh, it's your type of show. Welcome to the show, Steve. How's it going today, Monday morning?
Yeah, John, doing well. First Monday of May. When we last spoke on Friday, it was April still, and then I actually did do a segment Saturday on Sirius XM 204, channel 204, with our good friend Joe Ranieri, who will be hosting NBA Tip-Off, and that was the beginning of May. And I told him on that show, I was like, "Boy, this is a little bit better than May 1st a year ago, to say the least, for 2020."
Oh,
I was just looking forward to the NASCAR season restarting in a few weeks, and we had a little bit of UFC, and that was about it.
yep.
And now we have NBA, we have baseball, of course, we've got everything else as well. So 2021 looking good. But, it's funny you talk about the NBA because I'm going to do that show here, and I'll be live around, 2:45, 3 Eastern, whenever we all get our everything lined up there at Wager Talk TV. And, of course, it's archived, as are your shows. And I think most people probably watch it on the archive, so we're never in a hurry to go live. We want to get it right and then get it archived. But NBA's been a mess this year for me. I mean, it's been up and down. College hoops was very strong, but it's just a guessing game. And it's funny, I also did a spot with Teddy Covers from Wager Talk this past weekend on Channel 204 Sirius XM. And Teddy asked me, he's like, "What's with these NBA line moves? Is it just purely injury information and the wise guys playing the numbers?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think it is, but I also think they're maybe trying to catch some middles." And I know you've gotten more into the in-game betting. We talk a lot about it here on the show. And you can almost make an argument if there's ever a time to play the NBA. I mean, first of all, either play right before tip-off so you know the lineups, or wait a minute into the damn game and play the in-game line. Of course, as professional handicappers and consultants as you as I are, it's difficult to do that for our clients because we want to put the plays out 8-9 hours before the games. But textbook example, yesterday I had 2 plays at wagertalk.com. One of them was 4 points worse than the closing line with the Spurs. I put them out at +6, closed +10. The other one beat the closing line by 3 points. I put the Lakers out -7.5, closed -10.5. I went 1-1, but not how you thought I would have gone 1-1. Where I had 4 points of bad value, I win, and when I had 3 points of value, I lost. And that's just how it's gone all season. I have definitely lost more games than I've won when I beat the closing line by 3 points, and I can go back and track them. And we talked about it here, with Rob Vino and Tony Finn. It's almost like you take a damn contrarian view and you just play the team that's shorthanded. But what's crazy, John, is it's not like the 4 points is even making a difference because the Spurs covered out or they only lost by 2 in overtime. It's like the adjusted teaser, the free 4-point teaser I got didn't even make the difference. They covered the opening number. So I'm sure you've seen the same thing. It's been a very bizarre NBA regular season, to say the least.
Yeah, to your point, one of my games yesterday was Milwaukee and the Nets playing over the total. And we all know about totals that have been 235 and higher, 67% on the season.
Right.
Totals that are 215 or lower are basically the same number.
To the under. Yeah, make sure people realize we're talking about to the over 235 and then under 215 is interesting too. And John, what is the league average? About 222-ish, 224 now?
Yeah, I actually don't have it in front of me, but it's in the low 220s.
So you're talking about a little bit more than 10 to the up, 10 to the down on the average. And
yep.
And the extremes have paid off. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like 220, like 222.7, if I remember correctly. So it's basically in line with previous seasons, because the last 3 seasons, as you know, the scoring seems to be up this year, and there's a feeling for that, but actually it's right on the money from last year and the year before. But then going back to the 4th season, it drops 5.5 points per game. So this surge has been the last 3 seasons, but this year we've had more totals above 235 than ever before, and that is what makes it feel like we're in a new era of scoring, when in fact it's pretty much the same. But that Milwaukee game, we have to give our picks to the people early in the day, and in that game there was plenty of opportunities to get the over and the under because of the volatility of that game. And you and I have always talked about runs of 10 points or more.
Right.
And if it goes against your team, like tonight we had the Sixers against the Bulls, Sixers are playing back-to-back nights. Chicago has 1 day of rest. Personally, I don't think it's going to make a difference, and the Sixers will come away with a win. But it's just a situation anymore where pre-flop, I'm more and more thinking that why should I do a trade before the market opens?
Right.
Why don't I wait till the market opens and then get a feel for what's going on and then trade from there? When I was on Wall Street, I never made a trade or a market on open designated order. It was always, your existing position and then how you're going to trade around it throughout the day. And the NBA is fast becoming that, especially with the totals.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great analogy because you and I obviously, probably more so than anybody else at Sports Memo and Wager Talk, have kind of a financial trading background. And that's why I love talking to you about this stuff, because we look at it more analytically than I think most people as well. And bottom line is it's all numbers. I mean,
Yeah.
the one difference between the market, of course, is that there's a buyer for every seller. In-game betting, theoretically, it's not a market. It's still a sports book taking whatever action they can get. But I love the analogy about like pre-open. Yeah, I mean, after a weekend, you can look at the futures market 6 p.m. Eastern on Sunday night, and you're kind of going to know maybe, you'll see which way it's gapped from Friday. But the best example would be when the future markets close 5 p.m. Eastern Friday when Manny's Pub opens, and then when they reopen, at 6 p.m. Eastern on Sunday when Manny's Pub is sweeping up. There is no way to know. Nobody knows what that gap's going to be, and you can maybe see an hour or so before you'll start seeing the pre-orders come in. But you and I, nobody else knows on Saturday or Friday night what it's going to be Sunday night, or even Saturday night what it's going to be Sunday night. And it is a gamble. And I mean, if you have a systematic method like I do, and I'm sure you did as well, it kind of evens out in the long run. Sometimes you're going to get bit by % down or bit by % up. I'm okay with that. I do everything on the open as well. You could also do everything on the close. I just do it on the open personally because I do it manually. I don't have it automated enough where I could have the system kick it in at the last second. But as long as you're consistent, But yeah, sports betting is the same way. I mean, it's like I said, the Spurs are +6. They're in a fight, by the way, let's not forget, for those final 4 playoff spots. The 7 through 10 teams have to play in. So, of course, they got to play hard, right? Oh, no, it's Popovich. Yep. Sunday afternoon, a few hours after I put the play out, hey, let's sit everybody. DeRozan is averaging almost 22 a game. Now, I guess because you are playing the Sixers, maybe it makes sense. Maybe you can't beat them anyway, so you do sit. I can kind of get that angle. But, yeah, I mean, come on. And by the way, let's not forget, John, Popovich is the Kurt Flood of the NBA. He started this stuff years ago with sitting David Robinson, Duncan. He's kind of the originator of this, and it's out of control now. We've all talked about it. They're getting a free pass this year because they're playing so many games in such a short period of time, the load management, and I get that. But you and I both know when they go back to a full, 7-month, 82-game season next year, they're going to be sitting guys left and right because these regular season games just don't matter for the most part. And as a handicapper, I hate it. It's tough. And in-game betting is the future of sports betting, and I think it might very well be the future of sports betting in the NBA as well, to say the least.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, there's a couple of good games going on tonight. We mentioned the Philly game, and I already gave away who I like on that one. Chicago, they're 12-19 at home. And the Sixers are steadily getting better and better. I didn't like how they played last night. They had the game wrapped up early on and kind of let it get away from them. But the difference now with the Sixers is that they have learned to win on the road in difficult situations, whereas that was still wasn't happening under the Brett Brown regime. And for whatever reason, Doc Rivers has the recipe that is teaching these young players, one of the youngest teams in the NBA, how to win. And it's just feeding on itself. All you have to do is take a clip of Simmons last night as a point guard. I'm not even going to talk about his defense, but as a point guard, take a video clip of him last night and then go back to the beginning of the season. It's light years. Supposedly he's getting kind of tutored and mentored by LeBron. And you can see that style of play now starting to shine through because when he goes to the rim, it's like, get out of my way because you're not stopping me. And we haven't seen that with him. But it really ignites the rest of the team. But then, moving on to the other marquee game, Denver and the Lakers. And I think this is probably a game they're going to be talking about on that NBA Wager Talk show. I think actually the Wager Talk Today show, I think somebody, maybe it was Marco, was talking about this game. I have no idea who he took, but that is certainly another name that you want to find out what he said. But what's your take on this game, Steve, with the Denver and Lakers? I'll prep you like this. The Lakers are playing like crap.
Yeah.
They really are. And they gave up a fourth quarter lead at home to the Sacramento Kings and lost. So, I mean, and that was with AD and LeBron in the game. So no excuses, right?
Yeah, and last night, I was involved with both these teams. I played against Philly and I played on the Lakers, and I went 1-1. I do agree with you, by the way, about Philly and the road games. They're only 18-14 on the road, but that's a huge improvement compared to what they were last year with that home road dichotomy. I think they were like 10-31, or when they didn't play 41 home games, but they're on a pace to be like 10. It would have been like the equivalent of that. And above 500 in general on the NBA road's good. So, I mean, they are playing better. And then also you look at the star power. They've got Embiid, obviously, who's an MVP caliber player. Simmons, who was basically number 1, number 2 overall, whatever he was when he came out. And a great defensive play. And I love the fact you brought that up because defense might not matter much like these high-scoring regular season games that you've talked about, but it still matters in the playoffs. You think of Jordan, you think of Kobe, you think of LeBron. They're all shut-down defenders when they need to be. So, yeah, I think I still think that's where the value is from a futures market. What were they, like 6-1 a few days ago when I last checked to win the East?
Yeah.
Brooklyn, by the way, and this was only at FanDuel, so the odds vary, but when I did that spot with Teddy, we were talking about this last week, and Teddy likes the Sixers, by the way. Is I think his play out of the East. Brooklyn's ahead of everybody. They're like 2-1 to win the whole thing. Lakers are 3.5-1, and now we've seen the Lakers lose 2 straight with LeBron coming back. I do say often, though, that you got to be careful with teams out of the gate with a new player. He's been out for months. AD wasn't in the lineup. So I think there'll be some growing pains. But, yeah, I liked them last night, John, because I thought the fact they had that double-digit lead against Sacramento and then took their foot off the gas basically in the fourth quarter and lost outright, I thought that was a great buy sign. LeBron was questionable, but he played as I thought he would. It went from 7.5 to 10.5, and they lose outright. And it wasn't a misleading loss. They were down by, they outscored them by 8 in the fourth. They lost by 7. They were down by 15 going into the fourth quarter still. So, I don't know. I mean, the only concern I have is maybe they were looking ahead to tonight's game. But I thought the fact they blew that game against Sacramento would eliminate that. And as you and I always say, is we don't want to play a trending stock down. We don't try to catch that falling knife. I mean, hell, the Lakers outright basically big favorite losses and now no rest. So what are they going to do, fix the problems while they're sleeping overnight? I mean, they have no practice time. Yet, it wouldn't shock me if they come out and bring their A game, but they're playing a good team now. I'd have liked it a lot better if they were playing another bottom feeder because they haven't beaten 2 bottom feeders, and now they're playing one of the better teams in the league. So, yeah, it doesn't look like a great situational setup for the Lakers tonight.
I don't know if Ski is on the show today or not.
Yeah, I think he is. I thought of him, too, when he said Lakers. Yeah, I think Rob is, too, actually. Actually, I'll check. I believe it's Rob, Ski, and me on Mondays normally. So,
yeah, that's an excellent foursome there.
Yeah, it is. It's Hakeem and Rob. So, yeah, we got the regular, usual suspects.
And with full disclosure, you and I are the only ones that either Sports Memo or Wager Talk that are allowed to say that you can catch a falling knife.
Yeah, I was going to say, you and I definitely have some street cred when it comes to using that term, right?
Yep. Because with some of the other guys, I mean, if Tony Finn says it, it could be totally misinterpreted. Totally misinterpreted.
What's funny is actually Ski has used that phrase a couple times, and he didn't realize he'd gotten it from me probably over the last year or so doing the NBA shows with him. He's worked it into his repertoire as well, and I don't even think he knew where you first heard it. I'm pretty sure it had to be from me saying it, and then I know you've used it for years as well. And yeah, to catch a falling knife for those new people out there is basically, when a stock is just plummeting, you're not trying to predict the bottom. You're not trying to catch the bottom is a term I'd always used. And I heard some of the financial guys on TV the last year say catch a falling knife, and I didn't really take to it at first, but Gabe Morency likes it too, another Sirius XM Channel 204 guy. He had never heard it till I said it one time, and he thought that was very funny. But with Gabe also, the knife could mean something different, just like Tony Finn, so you never know.
Well, I remember we had a variation of it too. The Kings were playing really super bad. And I said, this isn't like catching a falling knife. The knife has already hit the ground and is bouncing up.
I was on that show. That was that Friday show.
Is that right?
Your system. Kevin Dolan was with us, and Kevin liked him. Kevin Dolan had a best bet on him that night, and your system on the NBA tip-off show on Wager Talk TV played him, and it was either 8 or 10 straight losses they were on, right? And they were favored. It was at Detroit. Yep. And
Yep.
but they had come off like an 8-game win streak, and then they lost, what was it, 8 or 10 in a row. They've been the most bipolar,
Phew.
consistently inconsistent team all season long in the NBA. And there again, they overcome that big deficit against the Lakers, who we're talking about. That's the team that just beat them the other night with LeBron coming back. It's been a weird NBA season, to say the least. But it's funny about talking about the overs. And remember when Rob was on with Tony a few Fridays ago, and Rob says the Bucks, all 5 starters are out, and that over/under
Yeah.
line eventually dropped 8 full points. The point spread dropped 8 or 9. That is a game where Charlotte still did cover, but it was a pick 'em. It's most of these games we're talking about, like the Spurs are big dogs. But I remember I said, man, the over. I mean, it's an 8-point adjustment. It's a playground mentality. One thing that's a certainty is these guys can score in their sleep. I mean, they all can score, and that's why, like Ben Simmons or somebody come playoff time, if you got a guy that wants to play defense, can play defense, I think that's a real game changer in the NBA nowadays. And I'm starting to come over to Philly a little bit more. Teddy liked him, you like him now, and I'm starting to kind of see that as well.
I actually went to the window the day of the Harden trade, and it was not because of Harden. It was because Boston wasn't going to get a point guard.
Yeah, yeah,
And that
Boston's
was
really
seven
out
to
there
one, and
still.
now it's 6 to 1, and it's still big time cheap. But
Well, and
in
the thing
this
is, like,
Lakers game, if
and who
you
else is it going to be? You got Miami and Boston still, but they've yet to turn it on, and it's Philly and Brooklyn. So it's really, you're getting almost 6 to 1 in a head-to-head with Brooklyn, in my opinion. I mean,
yep,
obviously there's a chance Boston and Miami could do something, but I don't think it's too likely. So, and I think with Brooklyn, maybe it's not 50-50, but it's probably pretty close. I mean, the Nets, they haven't had their lineup for months. I mean, and here again, we've seen that. Look at the Lakers trying to get their lineup together, and they're doing it a month. They're doing it 2 weeks before the playoffs. When's
yep.
Brooklyn going to get their whole lineup together? First round of the playoffs? How's that going to work out? I mean, it's you can't just flip a switch.
No, I don't think you can either. There has to be chemistry, and of all the teams you just mentioned, the team with the greatest chemistry right now is the Sixers by far.
Yeah, I agree.
There's no egos on that team this year, and maybe Embiid wants to be the MVP, but he has not publicly said anything of the kind. It's like Simmons last night won the game in overtime with a tip in.
Yeah.
And his media was all humble, all about the team. We're almost like Belichick. We're on to Chicago now. We're worried about playing Chicago tomorrow night. It was kind of like a mini version of him. But if you see Ski on the show and you think of it, he's been saying you don't put money on bad teams. And what I want to know from him is if the Lakers are now on his list of bad teams.
I will ask him. I'm going to put a note right now. I'm going to put a
That would
note
be
down right
interesting.
now.
Because they're 7th now in the division, in the standings.
Well, I think we know what his answer is going to be. At least what my answer would be. Well, they've got their lineup now, and of course, and I know what our comeback would be. Well, they just lost 2 straight games as a double-digit favorite, basically, with their lineup. So, yeah, I think there's some problems with the Lakers. I mean, I said this last year, and everything was crazy last year with the bubble playoffs and everything, but AD and LeBron probably, when they're healthy, and like last year especially, they're probably both top 4, top 5. So you're talking about 2 of the 5, maybe if not 2 of the 4 best players in the league on one team. And that's insane. But then look at the rest of that roster. I can't think of a team, John, in like NBA Finals history, in recent history, that had a weaker supporting cast than the Lakers. I mean, almost every team, like even the Bulls with Pippen and Jordan. I mean, Kerr was a role player, but Kerr was a good 3-point shooter, and it's just. And then the Pistons, like Rodman and Isaiah. I mean, Lembeer and Isaiah, and they had Rodman too. And the Bulls, by the way, had Rodman also. It's like they had guys that were kind of like all-stars still. I mean, there was nobody close on that Laker roster last year that was not even really of a starter, probably. I mean, for a lot
there
of
was no
teams.
Kerrs. There was no.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't have a number. They weren't, and like the LeBron and Kyrie, Kevin Love. I mean, these are guys that have been all-stars and could be second-tier play, like a number 2 on any other team. I mean, when the Lakers were shorthanded this year, you look at the stats. You took out LeBron and Anthony Davis. It was Schroeder, right? Wasn't Dennis Schroeder like their leading scorer, like 14 points a game, I think. And they've got some young guys, but they're young. I mean, some like Caldwell Pope and those type of players have been on and off there. But so I don't know. I'm not. I don't think the Lakers either can just flip a switch here and get these 2 guys playing their A game and make a run. And if I had to pick someone, I mentioned this with Teddy when I was doing the show on Friday night, is that. I mean, maybe the Clippers. I think I saw them at 6 to 1 in the West. Both the Sixers and the Clippers reached 6 to 1 to win their conference. I mean, put a unit on each of them, I'd feel a pretty good chance that one of them hits. You got a good chance, I
Yep.
think. And the Clippers fell apart last year, but yeah, they had a 3-1 lead, though. I mean, it's like, so there's two ways to look at that. Yes, they fell apart, but they were good enough to be dominating also. And I almost think blowing the lead is a good thing when you come back this year and you've got your full lineup. How could they not be focused? How could they possibly take their foot off the gas now? So I don't know. I'd probably say Clippers and Sixers would be mine, definitely from a value perspective, but I think they have the best shots along with anybody else.
Yeah. Yeah, I
And,
agree with that
you know,
matchup. That would be a good one to bet.
Clippers have been on and off all season, but the guys have been there. They've just been resting on and off, but they've been healthy. They've played together, 30, 40 games still. So, yeah, I wanted to get your take on that, too. I think those are the two that are looking live to me, like in that 6-1 range.
Yeah, the Lakers, you look at the ATS run here, they've lost basically 7 in a row because a push of -11 against Orlando, okay. I mean, they should have won by a lot more than that, especially coming off of the games they played, losing to Dallas twice in that run. They got smushed by Utah, but then we were saying, well, that's without AD. That's
Right.
without LeBron. But now they're back, and it's worse.
Yeah, I think this is a textbook example of let's wait and see something. I do think they'll turn things around here. I do think with AD and LeBron, a week from now, they wouldn't have lost either of these past two games. And I said it Friday on the NBA show when we thought he might be coming back. He was either going to come back then or Sunday is what the word was. And I said, I'd be cautious with him out of the gate. And AD struggled, by the way. I think he had 4 points in 17 minutes in his debut a couple weeks ago and shot 25% from the field the first two games combined. And it's not like he's taking long jump shots. He's inside, he's shooting 25%. So there's going to be some rust. But the thing is, why do we try to guess when it's going to happen? And the in-game stuff is interesting, too, because the Lakers had a big lead against Sacramento and then blew it. So I'd be careful with the in-game. I wouldn't say, hey, let's watch them play well for a quarter, then jump in either, because that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Because they've been very up and down in the two games, just straight up, quarter to quarter so far. But,
Yep.
once again, they got to put lines on all these games. We don't have to play them. And I really think that's long-term where you find your edge as a sports investor is – they got to put a point spread on these games, and they got to make the Lakers double-digit favorites. And yes, we should have been on the other side in hindsight, but they could come out and play their A game tonight. Would not surprise me, but I'm not going to try to guess if that happens or not.
Well, this is the classic case study of catching the falling knife.
Yes, exactly.
It really is, because the public is going to be thinking, well, LeBron's going to have a meeting and they're going to turn on the Jets and they're going to show who they are. But when you're a favorite of double digits, and I'll go through the database, for the Manny show tonight, and find out how many times a defending champion ever lost back-to-back games of double digits as a favorite, let alone a home favorite. It might be the first time ever. I mean, those are just horrible, horrible losses.
Yeah, I mean, John, I'd love to see that. Now they're a home dog, don't forget. They're a 4-point home dog. I'd love to see the database angle just in general of a team off back-to-back straight-up double-digit favorite losses that's now a dog, that's now a home dog. I mean, it can't be a very big subset or sample size. In fact, a message, I'm going to jump and go do the NBA show. If you can pull it up, message it to me, and I'll bring it up when we talk about this on the show today.
Yeah, the more I'm mentioned on that show for
yes.
Joe and company, the better, right?
Yeah, I'll give you, once again, a little name drop here. So send that over to me here because we're going to go on now, but we probably won't hit this game for another 10, 15 minutes. So, message it to me. And
as soon as we're done, I'll run it. And
because that just jumped out to me. Back-to-back straight-up double-digit favorite losses, and now a dog. And, I mean, I can't imagine there's been too many double-digit home favorites that are now a home dog. That would be a very small sample, but I'd love to see those numbers.
Consecutive games, I can't. We'll find out shortly.
All right, message it over to me. That'd be great.
I'm going to do the in-game, thinking that the Lakers will get out to a quick start because of the urgency, and you'll be able to get Denver at pick'em. So for in-game, I'm not going to do any pre-flop on this thing, but if they get out to the quick start there in the first 6 minutes and you can get Denver at pick'em or better, I'm on them.
I'm going to mention that for you, too, on the show, and that makes a lot of sense because they faltered in the fourth quarter against the Kings, came out slow in the game last night, but then won the fourth quarter by 7 last night. So if that angle continues, they should play well in the first quarter tonight with the quick turnaround.
You would
plus,
think.
AD and LeBron have not played a lot, so if anything, they should fatigue later in the game on a back-to-back. So if you're going to play the Lakers, I agree. I think pre-flop is the way to go, and then maybe catch a little bit of a hedge or a middle
Yep.
there. So I like it. I'll bring that up as well. All right, I'm a Jet. Shoot me those angles though. That's good stuff.
You got it, man. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, John.
You
Take
got
care.
it. See you.